How's everybody doing? Gosh, I'm tired. Anyway, yes, welcome to my New Year's Day chat. I thought I better do this before the end of the year because, yeah, if we don't do it, I'll just be in 26 talking about books from 2025, which nobody does. Just seems bizarre, so let's see what happens. How is everybody else doing? Just checking that everything is working. As usual, there are two people watching. It's happening. It's happening. Yeah. So, happy joy evening. The noisiest washing machine in the world has stopped, thank goodness. Hey, Jim. Hello, are you back? Or are you still far away? Oh, thanks for the hearts. I'm feeling so exhausted. Let's hope I'm not coming down with anything. Right, I'm just pulling up my reads for 2025. Very helpfully, every single website that I use has done a roundup. It's like, hey, you want to see the books you read? So I'm just finding that. I should have possibly prepared this earlier, but it wouldn't be my channel if I was ready, would it? Here we go. Okay, how am I going to do this? Oh, there's lots of us. Hi, Tony. Hi, David Gibb. Hi, Eric. Hey, Pigeon. Hello. Happy New Year. Lovely to see some of you. It feels like I just saw you a second ago. My books. How am I going to do this? Very lost in the internet. I hope everybody had a good New Year's Eve. Oh, here we go. Right, I'll share my screen in true COVID fashion. So this is my 2025 year in books. Here we go. Oh, I can see myself now. So this year I only read 67 books, and my mental health is definitely reflected in how many books I've read. So this is quite a bad year for me. I think in the past, we can look at previous years. 83 in 2024, 65 in 23, 112 in 22, 36 in 21, oof, 109 in 2020, although I think there are lots of comic books in that one, 161 in 2019. Funnily enough, the last year I think I was happy was 2019. Not happy, but just no stresses in life. So yeah, let's go 2025. Yay! So I read 21,815 pages. It's not bad. The shortest book was Dagobo's Revenge, which you can see on our Bite It In's channel. We both read about that. That was really fun. Who would think it that I would like an orc book? Hello, John Burkett. Good evening. Tony said, how did the game of Camelot go? Good guys win, we lost, and we didn't even have a traitor. The longest book was Do You Dream of Terror 2? That's insane to me that book was that long. I remember really not liking it, I think, but we'll come on to that. The average book length was 325 pages. The most shelved was It Ends With Us, which I must admit I read just because of all the hoo-ha the furore over that book, which I found incredibly amusing. Well, actually, that's not very charitable. It's a horrible situation. Not very nice, but there was lots and lots of going on. So I read the book. Yeah. Hello, Slacker at Large. Happy New Year. Then I read Life in the Valley, which is, yeah, I think it was a self-publish. My average rating, see, I actually don't rate books in public anymore. I used to do reviews and star ratings, and now I don't, mostly because I'm a writer and I just feel so butthurt if somebody doesn't like my stuff. And I feel a bit like, who am I? Who am I to judge? And generally, mostly, I can find stuff that I love in all the books I read. So there was that. Hi, oh God, Pigeon Smith said, oops, I might have got you 4 books each over that length count. Yeah. Oh, crikey. This is what happens to me when I go out. When I innocently go to Dragon Meet. Oh. Yeah, I end up with books of this size. This is 3 books by Joe Abercrombie. And George Bloody R.R. Martin, old Longwind himself, has written, Joe Abercrombie is terrific. So how am I supposed to fit these in, carry these around in my bag, take them on the tube and on an aeroplane? So we'll have to see, Pigeon. But it's quite dense. That would probably take me, I don't know. I can't even think. I can't even imagine. But we'll get there. We'll get there. My dream job is just to have a job where you can read all day. Dom says, wait, what's this? I was expecting a roundup of the town of Reading. Well, Dom, I haven't lived there for about 31 years. So you're a little late, but my review of Reading would be, yeah, I think we'll leave that where that is. So maybe no surprises. The highest rated on Goodreads was Interceptor City by Dan Abnett, which I think is maybe my favourite Warhammer 40k book so far. I just think it's really brilliant and the characters are brilliant, and you can see my interview with Dan about this book. You can see Ian and I discussing it. It's a sequel to, Double Eagle, which is all about people who fly. It's basically like dogfighting in the 40th century. Is the Reading Festival still a thing? Let's just go off topic. The Reading Festival is still a thing. And I used to go religiously, and my band played Reading one year, and another year my band compared a stage. Now, the thought of going to a festival makes my blood run cold. Hello, Aleph. Good to see you. My first review of the year was for Elizabeth Gilbert, All the Way to the River, which I found out about Elizabeth Gilbert because she's the author that wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which was a very, very big self-help book that has been quite parodied. This book is immense. It's about being really lost in a relationship to the point of addiction, and it's really raw, it's really vulnerable, it's really expressive. Yeah, it just made me really happy to read. So I gave that a rare review. But here we go. Here are my 2025 books. So we started with a Mickey 7 book. I read this out of order because I'm a big fan of the Murderbot books by Martha. I can't remember her surname, but it will come to me. And because I like those books, people were telling me I would like Mickey 7. And also there was that movie with my old favourite Robert Pattinson. So I gave Antimatter Blues a read. Yeah, it was okay. I like the conceit. I think I would have liked the writing to be a little bit more storyfied, but, you know, a bunch of people love Antimatter Blues. Life in the Valley is a story about divorce and, yeah, just really heart-wrenching. Yeah, the devastating effects divorce had on someone. It's like an autobiography. Really, really, yeah, really broke my heart. Um, The Chewing Gum Rescue by Margaret Mahy. I could be buried with this book. I don't know if any of you read it in your childhood, but it has got some of the best stories in there, including one called The Giant's Bath Club, the Giant's Bathtub, which is very apt for me working for Lush. And part of that is they have this huge floating island of soap, because obviously it was a giant, so it's so big, and every time you cut a bit off, it has a different property. Like it could be strawberry foam or turn your bath into orange juice. And also, of course, the epic The Chewing Gum Rescue is fabulous. Yeah, Margaret Mahay, a great writer, a well-known New Zealand author. While the plots of many of her books have strong supernatural elements, her writing concentrates on the theme of human relationships and growing up. If you have littles, I hugely recommend The Chewing Gum Rescue. It's a great book. Pigeon said, do you count or do rereads? Or is it just first time reads on this? Yeah, if I reread a book, I put the dates back in and I count it. Martha Wells, thank you, Aleph. Yep. Pratchett books are great for rereading. They are, they're so good. Then I read a book called Maid. There was a movie about this starring Margaret. This is awful. My brain's just gone. Boo. Andy McDowell's daughter stars in this, and it kept being shown to me on TikTok and Insta. So I read Maid. I don't remember too much about the detail of the book, but I remember it was an uplifting journey story. This book also, I think it's really old, probably quite out of print. I Don't Care About Your Band, Lessons Learned from Indie Rockers, Trust Funders, Pornographers, Felons, Faux Sensitive Hipsters and Other Guys I've Dated. For those of you who don't know, I am a big Mark Maron fan, and Julie Klausner was one of his guests. She talked really amusingly about this time period in the book, so I picked it up. In terms of like band, you know, I'm with the band, this kind of like women's experience, I think it doesn't beat I'm with the Band by Pamela Des Barres. And it doesn't beat that really old book from the 60s, Groupie. I don't think it's meant to be in that genre, but it was quite insightful. Yeah, it was a good insight to, a woman's time of dating in that, I think it was New York back in the day. So that was interesting. David Gibb says, J-Lo Made in Manhattan. No, it wasn't that movie. It was a different movie called Made. Hello, Joe Mast, who says, Rainbow Jingle, reading Roundup. I don't know that because we didn't have Reading Rainbow in the UK. Tony says, I cannot remember the number of times I revisited June, the first book. Such a great book. The Delegate Dream Department Store. I read this. It was gifted to me, and it was also recommended at my workplace. And yeah, I found it's translated, and I found it a bit meh. Like, I found it very slow paced, and it wasn't what I needed. I would kind of think, I guess my childhood, I read kind of stuff like The Faraway Tree, and that kind of would have lit me up more than this did. But I know a lot of people have got a lot of kind of good life advice through it. I think it's meant to be, I don't know. I feel like some people had a very zen experience with this book. Hi, Alex Sinclair. Let's talk about the Book of Elsewhere, because I saw that Keanu Reeves had written a book. And also, for those of you who know, I'm part of something called Hate Club, Hackney Area Tabletop Enthusiasts. They were talking about a book club and another China Miéville book. And yeah, so that all kind of got tied together in 2025. I really struggled with this book. The concept was very cool. It's like somebody who cannot be killed and keeps returning to Earth, and it's like modern day, and scientists are trying to find out how. But yeah, it was a lot. It was interesting, but I didn't feel Keanu Reeves throughout. I mean, not that I know what Keanu Reeves feels like. I don't know that China Miéville and I can get along because I think it requires a lot of intensity and attention up front. This is just because I had the experience of starting a really dense China Miéville book as part of the Hackney area tabletop enthusiast book club. In fact, the person that suggested the book we read by China Miéville kind of joked with me at Dragon Meet that by suggesting this incredibly dense book, we never actually got to do a book club on it because no one got through it. But that made me really sad. I suggested a Warhammer book club and there was resistance. So yeah, not on me. Historita Jamalda says, currently my wife is resisting reading Mooring Glory Milking Farm. What the actual F, Jim? She reads lots of romantasy and it keeps getting suggested for her on TikTok and Amazon. The blurb for it is hilarious. See, I love fantasy. I'm not so into romantasy. I mean, I like a bit of romance in my fantasy. An example would be Tanis and Kitiara from the Dragonlance series. I like incidental romance in my fantasy, like, yeah, just as long as the fantasy is not completely built around the romance. I can't really bear that. I don't know why. Maybe I'm trying to think if I don't think I've ever really loved romance books. I've always needed like a unicorn, wizards, or spaceships and robots. Like, very required. David Gibb, a bit of Mills and Boon. Actually, I did read Mills and Boon. But I think all teenage girls do. My friend, well, actually, a friend who no longer is my friend, held a Mills and Boons party, and it was so fabulous. It was really wonderful. Yes, Eric. Eric's doing an emoji in the chat that I am reflecting. Dom Elf Kicker says, The Scar by China Miéville was awesome. What was the topic of that book, Dom? What was the subject? Tell us a bit more about The Scar in the chat. Kelly Bishop, the third Gilmore Girl. Everybody has a Gilmore Girl watching season. And yep, it was the autobiography of the actress who plays the Gilmore Granny, which I love. I used to absolutely devour autobiographies. I kind of surprised myself. I got into reading Lucy Foley's thrillers, and I think these were probably advertised fairly hardcore via Amazon at me. So these are really quick, easy reads. I can never figure out who done it. So yeah, very palatable thriller fare. Do you dream of terror too? Oh my lord, this was so hard to get through. I don't want to give anything away, but essentially you can see the blurb on the screen. 6 teens, along with 3 veterans, embark on a 20-year trip to set up a planet for human colonization. What could go wrong? Let me tell you, this is a very Gen Z book, and there's lots of ennui, suffering, mental health issues, disaster, heartache. It was rough. It was so hard to read. I can understand why it's huge, but it stressed me the F out. Not for me. Practice by Rosalind Brown. Absolutely delighted and proud. My pal Ros wrote this book, and there's kind of like a literary conceit around it where the author is writing, it's kind of a little bit Mrs. Dalloway, Ulysses, stream of consciousness, but not so much, but it's written by somebody in the time and the day. So it's like you're following someone live in the time of their day who's meant to be writing a paper at Oxford, and through that you discover her circumstances and Yeah, it's a great book. Great book. Big up, Roz. Very, very exciting to have author friends. Also, I love the fact that I read so much outside of Warhammer. I really, sometimes I need to. I manage to imbibe. Sometimes I'm mainstreaming like 40k and Heresy, and other times I get to read. Like, I would say Practice is a very literary book, and I don't often go there, but sometimes I do, and sometimes I dread it and I hate it, and other times I'm like, yay. So there we go. Dom says The Scar is a bizarre fantasy set on a flotilla city on the ocean. Okay, we can check that one out. The next one is Emily Wilde's An Encyclopedia of Fairies. Okay, I feel this has fairly romanticy vibes. Yeah, horribly annoying hero, very cool heroine. The hero, of course, is brooding, handsome, troubled, has powers, has family who are evil. Yeah, lots of very cute fairy creations. Health and Safety, a breakdown. This is another kind of historical autobiography, historical being 2016. And the author, Emily Witt, describes this horrible breakup and the kind of New York party scene, dance scene at the same time. Very, very raw. I love reading these books because I'm so nosy and I'm a complete little nosy. Yeah. Also, I don't love, but having had some breakups and like hearing about other people's breakups, I'm quite interested. So, yeah, it was gripping. And there's lots of good writing and journalism in there also. But ultimately, I found it quite distressing because the breakup stuff was heartbreaking. And for my top book in this kind of genre, it would be my friend Amy Liptrop's book, The Outrun, and her follow up, The Instant. So, yeah, I think once I kind of find myself comparing a lot of these types of books to Amy Liptrop's book, The Outrun, and that's not fair. Oh, the Poetry Business School. So, around the time that we started reading poetry on my channel, the boss of Lush, Mark Constantine, collaborated with his business coach and a lady called Deborah Alma, who owns the Poetry Business School. So when we have these little, I'm just looking for my bottle. So when we have these little poetry capsules that some of you will remember, like it's Deborah's shop. So this book is really interesting. It's emails between my boss, Mark, and Deborah, as she discusses opening a new shop in London, a new poetry pharmacy shop. And she's kind of mentored by Mark in that a little bit. And Kate Downey Evans is a business coach and makes comment. And throughout the book, you see this email correspondence with poems. Oh, such a lovely trip. I was going to try and cycle it into our poetry when we read after on our Sunday nights. But we do have 4 poetry books going at present, so might have to hold our horses there, but recommend the Poetry Business School. Oh, here we go again. So I thought this would be like a nice cozy fantasy, and it kind of is, but also it deals with death, and it is a romance as well. This is very, very beloved. It won the Goodreads Choice Award. Highly recommend. Yep, that's that. Here we go. Crossfire by Matt Farah and edited by Mark Gascoigne. So we had a lovely interview with the creator of Sheer Calpurnia, Matt Farah, and this is an excellent Warhammer 40k book. It follows the life of Shira Calpurnia, who is an Arbites officer, and it's part police procedural, part world exploration of this planet, and the city is so, everything is completely imagined. If you see my interview with Matt Farah, you will see what a wonderful world he created. It's so complete, absolutely mind-boggling. Tony has asked, no well inspection text. Well, that's the thing, Tony. I think the onus might be on us to write a well inspecting book, because who else is going to write one? Let's face it. Dan Hanley. I went on a writer's retreat with the British Fantasy Society back in March, and Dan Hanley was one of the writers there. And this is a heck of a grimdark novel. It says in the title, The Great Leap, a dark medieval fantasy novel. It's about some young teenagers who have these magic properties, and it is full of torture. It's one of the most grimdark books I've ever read. There are two more books forthcoming, and I feel I might be too much of a wuss to read them. But big up Dan, very gripping and tense. Wild West Village. So Lola Kirk is the sister of Jemima Kirk, who appeared in Girls, which is probably one of the reasons I found this book. And it's like an eccentric growing up, and then Lola becomes a musician and dates famous people, and yeah, growing up like a famous kind of kid. And then Age of Darkness. Oof. We had some great short stories in here. Look at all the different authors in here. Graham McNeil, James Swallow, Nick Kime, maybe his first writing in the Heresy. John French, who I'm interviewing on Thursday. Chris Raitt, Gav Thorpe, Dan Abnett, Rob Sanders, ADB. A whole book of hits, and I got to do a little interview with Christian Dunn, who edited this, which is one of my faves, and yeah, loads and loads of great short stories. David said, I like that one. I still think everyone pronounces her name wrong. How do you pronounce it, David? Write it phonetically in the chat. It ends with us. This was a rough read. It has to do with like domestic abuse. And I read it to the backdrop of the furore that was going on around it. It reminds me of my mum used to read Catherine Cookson and Maeve Binchy. And it's very unsettling and upsetting to read about that stuff. And I kind of go out of my way to try not to read challenging topics because my brain responds, I feel all the feelings. And I'm glad I read it because of the zeitgeist, I guess. Oh, now this book, I searched this book down. It took me ages to get hold of this book. When was this published? First published in 2010, which you wouldn't think it was that hard to get hold of. Oh my gosh, The Ennui, How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe. I mean, what a great title for a book. This is one of the best book titles I've ever heard. This really was not what I was expecting. I found it full of ennui. I found it difficult to read. It confused me. This is why I think sometimes I'm kind of low intelligence. It was really interesting. It was like, the dog looking at the can, and the picture on the can is a dog looking at the can, and the picture on that is a dog looking at the can. It felt a bit like that. And yeah, I'm glad I read it. That's Not a Bird said, I really liked your interview with the editor. Yes, Christian Dunn. We had a lovely chat around the Age of Darkness. That's Not a Bird said, I never really thought about how editors think about the overall narrative and such. Well, after I interviewed Christian, I started editing Trench Crusade, and it was really, really handy for me to be in touch with editors to get that insight into the role and everything. The next book, The Chinese Maze Murders. So these books were first published in 1951, and I quite like some of my favourite books are the books about the detective Philip Marlowe, and those are things like The Long Goodbye and The Lady in the Lake. What other books? And I'm going to forget the name of it. Let's see. This is the beauty of the internet. Raymond Chandler. So I absolutely adore Philip Marlowe. I've read all the Marlowes. Big Sleep, Long Goodbye, Farewell My Lovely, Lady in the Lake, The High Window, The Little Sister, Trouble Is My Business, all of them. And so I really like reading historical detectives. I like Matroa Motswe, which is based in Botswana. One of my favourite books is The 7.5 Deaths of... Who is it? The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which is based around one of those classic Agatha Christie murder mysteries, but has twists. Not massively into Agatha Christie. But yeah, so I wanted to explore the Chinese maze murders. I felt its age, and I'm glad I read it, but I didn't go back for more. A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. Oh, this is heck of a romantasy. Had a very Celtic kind of old English, Irish, British, oldie worldy folklore, and a little bit frustrating because fairies were involved and like evil kings and things. But very exciting, strong female heroine. I think there's a book called Fire and Hemlock by Diana Wynne Jones, which is one of my favourite books of all time. And part of that is based on a legend of Tam Lin. And yeah, I like that aspect. I like the heroine who must save her beloved beau who's been marked or, cursed, by a fairy queen. Yeah, I enjoyed the book, but I don't know if I would go back for the sequel. And then we have Double Eagle by Dan Abnett, which is great. Of course, we all love Dan. And as you all know, not only do I get the pleasure of reading a Gaunt's Ghost book by Dan Abnett, I then also get to discuss it with my friend Arbiter Ian, and then I get to discuss it with Dan Abnett. And I swear there's a frisson of joy as I'm reading these books because I'm thinking ahead to what I'm going to ask and talk about. So I never know if I can review these as like from a place of like, hey, I just found the book, But yeah, lots of like zipping around and woo! That's your Joe Abercrombie just taking down half my bookcase. Lovely pigeon. Gal Moraz, aka Eric, says, other than Warhammer and books I have already read, I think I started and didn't finish one new book this year, Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Why have I heard that name before? Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry sounds familiar, but I don't know how I'd know it. Gal Moraz says Laura Jo Rowland has a detective series about a samurai in Edo period Japan. I thought they were excellent. Let's have a look. Laura. Okay. Sano Ichiro 1. Published first in 94. Let's stick a want to read on that. Dom Elfkicker says, I'd say a bit Agatha Twisty would be a good plot device description. I agree, Dom. Pigeon says, sorry I cause havoc even when I'm not around. Is that one of your life traits then, Pigeon? Good to know, good to know. This is going to make some people hate me. The Daddy Diaries, The Year I Grew Up by Andy Cohen. Who is Andy Cohen? You may ask. Before I can answer that question, I would have to say to you, do you know who the Real Housewives are? Because Andy Cohen is one of the producers or who works at a TV production company called Bravo and is responsible for bringing all the Real Housewives franchises to the world. I am not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed that I love the Real Housewives. Yeah, so this is a great book from Andy talking about his life and basically his first years as having children. So I'm not sure. I think there's limited interest to anybody who comes to this channel for Warhammer, so we'll go fast. Mark Lawrence. Oh, I've been in correspondence with Mark Lawrence for maybe 2, 3 years, trying to see if he'll come on my channel. The reason for this is I believe Mark Lawrence introduced me to the Grimdark. For those of you who haven't read Mark Lawrence, he is an amazing author, and he has written The Prince of Thorns was the first trilogy that I got hold of that he'd written, and he writes anti-heroes beautifully. Just think chaotic Primarchs, but like 10,000 degrees worse and human. And Mark Lawrence basically introduced me to Grimdark. Or maybe it was Robin Hobb. I think I was coming out of Robin Hobb, and then Mark Lawrence was recommended to me. I'm sure I left a review. The protagonist of this bloody tale is the seriously nasty piece of work, Prince Jorg. The opening chapters are brutal, violence prevails, the prince's companions, a group of road brothers, are savage and kept in order just by the wicked, callous, untrustworthy and utterly evil leanings of Prince Jorg himself. So, yeah, he's a great writer. His latest trilogy was called the Library Trilogy. So it was Mark Lawrence writing about libraries. The subject of this, I think Mark Lawrence writes really well when someone is being subjugated or enslaved, tortured. And there was a lot of that throughout. And it was comparing, there were different types of alien races and different inhabitants of a planet in different, different zones. So it was a lot. It was intense, but I love books set in libraries. What can I say? Oop. Oh, Happy New Year, Raincoat. Let's go back. Oh, next. Oh, Pigeon says Abercrombie Lawrence and Scott Lynch all hit the grimdark scene about the same time. All very good. I will see, Pigeon. I will reserve judgment. If you've given me 1,200 pages of grimdark, it might not happen. That's all I'm saying. So then we got to the Raven Guard, which I was so excited about. It's my first Gav Thought book, and yeah, I think Raven Guard are one of my favourite legions so far. I really like Korax. I enjoyed bantering with Ian about how emo they are and how Ian is not a fan of emo chapters. I really love this story. I love it when we get a Primarch origin story. I thought the Raven Guard were really brave and noble, and I felt really bad for them. And of course they're emo, the ennui, the destruction, everything they've gone through. So I really loved Deliverance Lost, and I got to speak to Gav Thorpe. Regular viewers will know I'm obsessed with Mark Maron. He's so angsty, grumpy, funny. So yeah, love a bit of Mark Maron. And then The Outcast Dead. Oh, poor Kai. What a story. And again, the immense and amazing Graham McNeil, a fabulous heresy book set on Terra, which is very, very exciting. And we get to feel the effects of Magnus breaking in. Oof, we were so on the edge. There was a Thunder Warrior in this book. I mean, what? Such a treat. I love it when the Horus Heresy treats me well. Then we have another Mickey book. So I finally get round to reading the first Mickey book. By this time, Robert Patterson is all over the book covers, and I've seen the movie. And yeah, it was okay. Where do we go next? I next went back into Emily Wilde's Other Lands, back to the fairy realm. That was okay. And then Dan Abnett, no fear. Oh my gosh. What a heartbreaker. What a. And it just made my hatred of the word bearers grow. And I was so delighted at the end when a certain person seemed to be destroyed. And I can't tell you how gutted I was discovering what really happened. But so many people were anticipating me getting to know No Fear. And now I understand why. We had a great chat about it, Dan and I. Ugh, the word bearers are so objectionable. And seeing the betrayal, I mean, Isfan 5 on its own was horrific, but seeing the betrayal, like, so close up, there was a beautiful scene in this book where two space marines who had been friends previously were just having a chat, and the next moment, one of them was dead. Really powerful writing from Dan as usual. Such a treat. Okay, so this is another like meditative, soft fantasy, kind of high stakes in terms of like your eternal soul. And it was very romanticy. So yeah, this was also okay. I found it very peaceful to read. There was like a alternative like fairy kingdom, supernatural through the looking glass kind of kingdom, which I enjoyed. Um, oh, now this is great. This, yes, this was very, very fun. Um, I don't want to say too much without spoiling it, but yes, very, oh gosh. So, like, kind of classic style, set in kind of imagine, like, I guess, Victorian society or post war society, maybe. And yes, witchy things are afoot. I didn't realise, so I'm reading this now, a dark retelling of the Brothers Grimm Goose Girl. But yeah, really enjoyed this. Very, very strong book. We've talked about Elizabeth Gilbert. Eric is saying, for historical fiction, Stonehenge and the Warlord Chronicles trilogy by Bernard Cornwell are epic. I feel like I've read some Bernard before. Oh no, I don't think I have. Bernard? I think it might be too historically and not fantasy enough for me. I'm not really about direct historicals. Now, if there was a wizard in it, then you find me scratching around, playing with the sorcerers. Adrian Tchaikovsky, who often delights me. This author can churn the books out. Recently, he has been writing Warhammer books as well, I believe. Yeah, what was one of his latest is a Warhammer book, I think. You can see I've read a bunch of his. No, okay. I can't remember the Black Library stuff that he's done, but he is also a Black Library person now. Alien Clay. Yes, this was a tough read. It's about political prisoners sent away to a difficult alien planet to survive. And yeah, I don't want to say any more for spoiling it. Kept me gripped, very difficult. Then we have Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. How does this man do it? Like, this was kind of like a road trip movie kind of vibe. And yeah, you follow a little robot on his adventures. Just really tugs at your heartstrings. Galmaraz says, there's a druid wizard and you're my favourite Merlin in any media. I will look it up, Galmaraz. Then we had the Primarchs, another really rich treat of a book. So many great authors within here. And we got some really great stories about different Primarchs. Fulgrim, Lionel, Ferrus Manus, and Alfarius and Amagan. A big fave of our Historia de Maldus, them two. again, a real treat. And yeah, I got to talk to Christian Dunn again, which is just chef's kiss. The Green Man's War. I'm just reminding myself. Yes, so I read this book as part of a jury, reading fantasy books. Yeah, it's quite hard coming into the middle of a series of books, and this was Green Man 7, which I read. It was interesting. It's a little bit detectory with supernatural. What would I compare it to? Those books that James Marsden annotated, beginning with D. Supernatural Investigator, beginning with D. This is going to drive me mad now. James Masters, maybe it was. Audio book. Dresden Files. It reminded me a little bit of the Dresden Files. There you go. Jim says, Day of Ascension is called. Sorry, we were just talking about Adrian Tchaikovsky. Adrian Tchaikovsky's Warhammer book is called Day of Ascension. And this man, I think he writes like a book a week or something. He's so prolific. A Gene Stealer cult novel 3 years ago, Day of Ascension. I don't know if I could handle a Gene Stealer cults novel, but I'm glad that they exist because I know someone out there will absolutely freaking love it. And good for you, Gene Stealers. This is book 3 in Mark Lawrence's The Library trilogy. I think I asked him if I could come on my channel. I don't think he was really that convinced. The next time he has a new book out, I'll ask him again. He can only say no. I just worry, I kind of have this like 3 attempts rule and then I clear off, because I think if you ask someone more than 3 times and they ignore you or they say no, then it becomes harassment, right? So yeah, there's that. But yeah, I struggled a little bit with the direction of this last book. I completely wasn't expecting it, and it brought it to quite a contemporary time. All the usual twisting of my soul and like pummeling of my heart that Mark Lawrence does, he did. That happened. Oh my gosh. Why did I read this book? Beyond Black by Hilary Mantel. Like a character human study about a relationship by 2 people, and very, very clever. Like what's real, what's not in clairvoyancy. There's a supernatural element, but wowie zowie, I found this rough, very, very hard to read. Not my usual. I don't know how I got to read that. I just did. Galmaraz says, Jim, it's intriguing to see authors both in and outside Warhammer. I was surprised when I bought a Gav Thorpe that isn't Black Library. I love it. Eric, there's so much to discover. For example, James Swallow writes all kinds of different IPs. He also writes some great spy stuff independently. Yeah, look it up. Oh gosh, The Fourth Consort. So I picked this up because it was by the same writer who wrote Mickey 7. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, not madly into this. I managed to finish it. Yeah, it was a lot. How I normally enjoy first contact sci-fi. It's just something that I didn't get along with on this. It was rough again. There was lots of fighting, and I think the problem is I'm probably only spec'd to read kids books and YA. It's my own fault. Rebel Rising, Rebel Wilson's autobiography, because I'm nosy and I love an autobiography. Free lunch. So I belong to a couple of libraries in the US. I think this is from the Broward Library in California, and they were doing a book club. And yeah, I just love this book. It was a really quick read, and yeah, it's about a kid who gets free meals and his experiences of going to school. A great little book. Highly recommend. Yay! Then Interceptor City, which was wonderful, as we discussed at the top of this. And then quickly after that, Ian and I read, well, Ian's already read The Guns of Tanith, which ties back into our Gaunt's journey. And then Fear to Tread, the lovely Sanguinius and James Swallow back in my life. Oh, such a tragic tale. The poor little blood brothers. I really, really love this book. Yeah, like I keep saying, I felt so spoiled by all the books in this run. This has been a good year for heresy books for me. Again, Dom's written, waiter, there's a gene stealer cult in my soup. I hope not, Dom, I hope not. Then this is another guilty pleasure, My Good Side by Sheena Shea. If you don't know who Sheena Shea is, it means you have never watched Vanderpump Rules or The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So don't even worry about it, is all I'll say. But whoa, the twist at the end, the secret that she dropped and she held. Oof, Sheena. Come on now, girl. Murder Below Deck. Probably tempted into this because I read murder mysteries and I watch Below Deck. And there was also a movie on regarding that was peddled furiously on one of the channels, Amazon maybe, and I think it was called Triangle or something, about a super yacht that was shipwrecked. Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't find it as hugely satisfying as I find some murder mysteries, and the detective is a chef. When the detective gets locked up or knocked out, it stresses me out. With Philip Marlowe, I can handle it, but I can't handle it with all detectives. So, yeah, this one was okay. What was this? Oh my gosh. I was so cross that I read this book. It's really, really cross. It's what happens when a hiker, 42-year-old hiker, goes missing on a hike, and the search for her and what actually happened to her. I mean, I'd say come here for the forest and stick around for the thriller, or, but yeah, I found this a real trudge. Yeah. It had all the things that I thought I would love, but I found it really difficult. Found it quite lots of feelings of isolation, and yeah, it just tipped me on my edge, and maybe I wasn't in the mood for it, but this is very, very highly regarded. And then Soul Hunter. Tony said to Dom Elf Kicker, that will cost extra for the gene stealer in his soup. Then we had Soul Hunter by ADB. Oof. And I had been dreading this. I was so delighted. The reason I read this book is because I got to 10,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, which, if you told me that would happen, I would not have believed you. But I really, really enjoyed this book. The Night Lords, for some reason, I'd built this up in my mind as like really grim, horrific, torture-y, and it had those elements, but nothing as bad as some of the things I've read. Looking at You, The Reflection Cracked, for instance. Yeah, highly recommend The Night Lords. I think I've got a couple more to read. Void Stalker, I think, is number 1 or 2, but we're ongoing with that. Yeah, I like the Night Lords. I learned today that Ian was saying that Night Lords and Raven Guard are two Chaos factions that aren't very popular to play. Ian has just put up a video about what Primarchs might return, and I was really surprised at that. But I had to stop listening to that video because of spoilers. Long Live Evil. So I remember reading this on the fire in September in Cornwall. No, it was in Devon. I had COVID and I was really sick, and I had a fire going, and I was reading this book, and I had to read really quickly because I was on a judging panel for the British Fantasy Society, and this was one of the books. This is really clever. This is like a timey-wimey, current day human slips into fantasy world that has been outlined in a book. Some great characters, some great self-referential. It's taking a look at the archetypes of the villain, the good girl, the bad girl in fantasy. So it's very knowing, which I really, really enjoyed. To compare it to, I mean, there's an element of the never-ending story, like going into the book. There's an element of, gosh, oh, it's going to drive me wild. But oh yes, the Thursday Week books by Jasper Fforde. It's not that on the nose in terms of literary characters, but knowing your tropes as you go in, yeah, really interesting. And yes, it's very much romantasy, but also very clever writing. That's Not a Bird says Night Lord models have such great aesthetics. What are the aesthetics? What would set the Night Lords apart from other legions if you had to describe it to me with Bird? Dom says ADB is so good at empathy for the bad guys. I know. A lot of those writers are, aren't they? So good. Talking of great writers, the amazing Dan Abnett, this very I found it very sentimental, just panoramic, gorgeous illustrations of various alien planets. This collaboration with Dan Abnett and Mark Harrison. Dan spoke about this at one of his book signings. I got home and literally found it on the internet and bought it. It's a comic book. I highly recommend. You know how I love my Dan Abnett. And then we have Guy Haley, Flesh and Steel. I love this book. It's a Warhammer crime novel. Ian and I really enjoyed it. Probator Simeon Noctis attempts to atone for his past sins by championing the powerless Near Steel district. So it's a very good kind of like rich guys, rich family in the Warhammer universe, and then the poor normies in the factories. Yeah, I have been chasing Guy Haley. I've approached Guy twice for an interview, so I have to be really careful. I'm getting to that harassment line. Oh, That's Not a Bird. Night Lords have bat ears. I love that. Yes, of course they do. Love. Yeah, love Flesh and Steel. What a great book. Hoping there is a second book. And then another great book, Watchers of the Throne. We're getting to quite recent books now. So Chris Raitt is one of my absolute favourites, which reminds me I should see if he'll talk to me about this. And this is a great book because it's set on Terra, and Chris Raitt quite often is allowed to set his books on Terra. He's written Valdor, which explored just before the Primarchs were stolen. No, just after the Primarchs were stolen. So you get to, be part of the Custodians. You get to see some sisters in here, Sisters of Silence. Great book. Chris Raitt, oh my gosh, I love him. And then you can see I had quite a few Warhammers in a row, and I went Mick Herron, Mick Herron, Mick Herron, Mick Herron, Mick Herron. These are books called Slow Horses. There is a big Apple TV series at the moment. I'm trying to read these books as quickly as I can because the TV show films them incredibly close to the novel. So if you can get to the novel first, you won't be spoiled by the TV, and your brain can form its own can get the pictures in the mind of the characters without thinking, oh yeah, this person's being played by Gary Oldman. I really love John le Carré novels, which may surprise some of you as they're quite violent sometimes, quite tortury. But yeah, I really enjoy the Slow Horses series. I find I can read one in a day. I could probably read one in half a day if I'm left alone. So I've read Slow Horses, Dead Lions, The List, Real Tigers and Spook Street and London Rules. And one of those may be an alternative. I don't think this is a Slow Horses one. Oh, it is. Oh, it's a 2.5. Yeah, so highly recommend. If you're into your spy stuff, read those. And then Angel Exterminatus, I think, was my last completed novel. of this year. Whoa, I cannot wait to talk to Graham about this. Bloody hell, Fulgrim. Oof, I mean, Ian and I have done a video on this. I mean, what? I can't even go into what happens, but suffice it to say that I now know Fulgrim cannot be saved. Oh, no, the last Warhammer book of the year was Dagobah's Revenge, which Ian had this great idea to read because it's very Christmassy. And normally I really dislike orc books, but I love Mike Brooks and his writing's great. And there's loads of little in-jokes around like Home Alone, Die Hard. Very quick read and loads of fun. And then, why did I start? I know we discussed sometimes I enjoy jumping into literature. So I read Bridehead Revisited. And yeah, for some reason I thought it would be like a romance or something, you know, maybe like, I don't know, maybe raunchy or something. I had never realised what it was about. Yeah, so I thought it was this kind of like, it would be like some kind of like classic romp, you know. But yeah, it was fairly sorrowful. It tells the story of how am I going to say it? It tells the story of a rich family, the Marchmains, and the author, the narrator, kind of becomes really great friends with the son, Sebastian, who turns to alcohol. And the family are, yeah, it's not a happy family. And I'm really like not selling it here, but it's a classic literature piece. It really depressed me. The ending just, I was, had little tears dribbling down my face. But I think that's okay. So that has been my 2025 in books. Yeah, not too shabby, I think. Yeah, so thank you for coming on my Germany? I'm so tired. Thank you for coming on my journey with me. I'm hoping and praying I get to read a bunch more books in 26. All being well, I have a week's holiday coming up, so that would be really good. But the problem is when I'm streaming games, I'm not getting to read. When I'm watching so many different things like Stranger Things or what else have I been watching? Housewives, then I'm not reading. So yeah, I'm hoping to read. Hermetic Signal says alcohol is poison. I mean, I don't drink, but what are you going to do? The evils of alcohol, says Galmaraz. Tony says the main reads this year is catching up with the Judges series novels set during early and pre-Dredd years. Because Dan did some Judge Dredd, didn't he? I haven't read any Judge Dredd, really. Galmaraz says the Mirror Ian Book Club, as well as another from YouTube, has helped me restart my Horus Heresy attempt and reading books that I've meant to or rereading much loved old books. Thank you so much. You're so welcome, Eric. What a great... If that's all I leave on this earth, people reading more books that they love, what a legacy. Hermetic Signal, welcome to the channel. How was Dagobah's Revenge? Yeah, it was really fun. Ian and I enjoyed it. If you watch our review on Ian's channel, you can see I dressed up as a reindeer and spoke like a little goblin at the beginning for about 5 seconds. What I imagine goblins to sound like. Dom said, what do you think of Peter Turbo after Angel Exterminatus? I think a lot of the loyal Primarchs are really torn by duty to the Emperor and their own wishes and ambitions. And I think it's hard being the son of an emperor, is what I think of Peter Turbo. Yeah, that's what I think. I'm looking forward to reading more about both Primarchs. Fulgrim, now he's gone full Ascension. I don't know if he's just going to become like... I don't know if Chaos Primarchs are articulate or whether they just go bleh and they're all slime monsters. So I'm kind of nervous to see Fulgrim again in the Heresy, but I'm excited to see. I love a Primarch. That's not a bird. Do you have a games ranking? I don't think so. Um, it's a good frame actually. Once you view it that way, you never want to drink again. Hermetic Signal. I'm going through The Fall of Cadia right now. That's a long old book, isn't it? I've got a Cadia book here somewhere. Where is it? I'm just looking down on my book piles. Gosh. In one of these book piles I have a Cadia book, but I think it's just one of Justin's books. Cadia Stands I've got by Justin D. Hill. That's my Cadia book. Do you ever worry that there are more books and there's time to read them all? I do, Immolate Warlock, because so many people want me to read so many different books, and I have like a day job and I have my freelance work. So, yeah. But I'm just doing my best and trying not to let people down. And when people give me books, I try and promise to read them. There's just a lot to get through in the Warhammer universe. I wonder how many Black Library books they've published altogether. Probably about 800. Anyway, I think I've kept us chatting for a good hour. I will give us a poem before we all leave. What have I done with my poetry books? Let's have one from The Orange by Wendy Cope. So many, says Hermetic Signal. Okay, so we haven't read this book for a few weeks. If I'd read it, it would have been more timely. The Orange by Wendy Cope, and we're going to read a poem called A Christmas Poem, which I probably should have read last week. A Christmas Poem. At Christmas, little children sing and merry bells jingle. The cold winter air makes our hands and faces tingle, and happy families go to church and cheerily they mingle. And the whole business is unbelievably dreadful if you're single. Preach, preach, Wendy. Actually, it's not that bad being single at Christmas. I just feel like my wish is to have a Christmas on my own, where I don't have to rush around and I just get to stay at home with some M&S, delicious meals and a bunch of books and stay in my pajamas all day and not have to drive to someone's house. I think one Christmas I had booked a shepherd's hut on the beach, and my plan was to stay on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day wake up and go for a walk by the seaside. And for whatever reason, COVID or something, that never transpired, but that is one of my dreams. Yeah. But thank you all so much for starting the new year with me, with my countdown of books. I'm so looking forward to 2026. I'm praying for a better, brighter 2026 for all of us, with many more blessings and serene moments and abundance and money and gold and treasures and good communications, friendships, family, health, love, laughter, other things beginning with L. So that's my wish for all of us. Thank you for keeping me company. I think I'm going to go to bed now. I'm going to go to bed and watch Traitors if the iPlayer is showing it, because it was on at 8 tonight. And yeah, I'll see you all on Sunday for some more Scorpion Swamp. And if you have questions for the amazing John French that you'd like to ask about Dropsite Massacre, please, you need to be a YouTube member or a Patreon member to ask a question. Please throw some questions my way. And thank you all for watching. So till next time,